Alright, welcome to the video on geometry logic symbols. We're going to go over a couple of the symbols and briefly talk about what they mean. So this first symbol, which looks like a V, the name of it is disjunction. That's not really the major part. It's known that symbol stands for OR. So this symbol means OR. So you would have whatever happens before the symbol or this. Okay, so when we flip the symbol, that stands for conjunction. Again, that name isn't important. When we flip that, we want to think of that as and. Okay, and so picture this symbol here looks like an capital A without the lines there. So that's how we know that one is and. Flip it around like the V is for or. Okay, so now if you see an arrow with just one arrowhead, that's what we call a conditional statement. And in a couple days, we'll be doing a lot of work on conditional statements. But conditional statements just means the if, then. It has two parts. It'll have a hypothesis and a conclusion. And so when you see this symbol, you'll usually see something similar like with a P on the front and a Q behind. And what that really means is if P, then Q. That's what it means when you see that arrow, okay? And then if you have an arrow with two heads, that's a biconditional statement. And again, we'll go through that in more detail later. But that just means it goes the conjunction of both the conditional and the converse, so it goes both ways. And this symbol means if and only if, okay? And so again, you can have the P and the Q surrounding it. And so you would read that as P if and only if Q. And we like to say if and only if is abbreviated, because math people sometimes like, a lot of times like to abbreviate, is just if with an extra F. So you got IFF, which stands for if and only if. So you have whatever your P statement is, if and only if Q. We should be very familiar with this not equal to symbol. It's just the equal sign with a slash through it. Okay. Then negation is kind of a little squiggly symbol. You might see that if you take a foreign language like Spanish. But negation, I want you to think not, okay? Or the opposite of whatever that statement is saying. So if you have P is your statement, then it'd say not P, and that's what that little symbol in front means. So that means the opposite of P. So if P said I went to school, and then I have not P was that I did not go to school. Okay. Again, mathematicians don't like to write everything out, so we have this three dots in a triangle, and that's what we use when we want to do therefore. So anytime you see these three dots, we can use that in place of the word therefore. And then, as you saw me do earlier, you have a P and a Q. So a P is the hypothesis, or the first part of the statement following if in a conditional statement, and Q would be your conclusion, and it follows the then part of the conditional statement. And again, you will get more into about the hypothesis and the conclusion. All right, so we're going to quickly go through some practice. We're going to have some statements, and then we're going to write, they're in words, and we're going to write them in symbolic form. So we have our P statement is I love math, Q, I did not go to school, and R, I saw Bruno Mars. Okay, so now we just want to translate these statements into symbols. So the first statement is I love math or I saw Bruno Mars. Well, we know I love math is P, so that's where we're going to start. P. But then we know this or, and so remember the symbol for or is that V symbol. And then I saw Bruno Mars, that's our R. So if I had to write that statement in symbolic form, it's P or R. Okay? All right, so let's try another one. So example 2 says, therefore, I went to school. So remember that symbol for therefore, how do we translate that? That's the little triangle made of dots. Therefore, I went to school. I don't, in my PQRs, I don't see I went to school, but Q says I did not go to school, and I went to school is the opposite or the negation of that, so then we can do not Q. So if I had to take that in symbol form, we get therefore not Q is what that would look like in symbol form. All right, so for example 3, our statement is, if I saw Bruno Mars, then I did not go to school. So we see we have that two part with that if then. So that if then is telling us that we're gonna have that conditional statement arrow. Okay? So if I saw Bruno Mars, I saw Bruno Mars as R, so that goes there, and then I did not go to school, and I did not go to school was Q. So we can read that if R, then Q. And that's what we have to translate that statement in number 3 into symbols. And then we'll do another one. All right, so our last example says, I did not go to school if and only if I love math. Well, what stands out to me, first of all, is that if and only if. And remember, that's the symbol for a biconditional, and the biconditional is that double-headed arrow. So I'm going to start there. Okay? And then so our first part is, I did not go to school, which we know is represented by Q. So we can put that there. And then I love math was P, so that goes here. So this statement reads Q if and only if P. And remember, that's going to be a little different from the conditional statement, because the conditional statement goes if the letter, then the letter. But in the biconditional, that if and only if goes in the middle. All right, that's it.